So, I guess this is technically the making of, day one, making of this one. Transformers Lexicons. It's not behind the scenes. It's making of. Kill All One. Looking for the toys, the characters. Well, first of all, two of the alleged voice actors have left. They're not really voice actors. They're all the same person. but there's just too many people. Too many, like, fake names. It's like, why are you doing that? That's a story that there's just too many fake names. So, yeah. So they're not going to be in the... They were in the pilot, but they're not in this. Around wrestled with this story idea here because of the eight episodes we have. Technically, it's more than 8, but 8 episodes altogether. We have let's see whether we filmed them all. This one is the problematic one because this person, Artemis Prime or Cavalier, is actually somebody that's known and is known on TF board forums and stuff. Posted the story on Lexicons, and she puts herself in the story, and it does break one of the cardinal rules of that. But fan fiction, you can put yourself in the story, but she literally put herself in the story. So all during the convention of the Fanime, it wasn't mentioned at all, but it was hinted at. Yeah, I was like, what are we gonna do with this? So I wandered around considering this at the con. Do we or don't we use that character? Do we pretend someone else is that character? I think we're going to have to go with the route we've been going with. And we can't use her character because, like the characters from... We can use a character like her character, but not her character specifically. Obviously, if her name is famous, it's sort of like... Well, if there was a Kal Kat in it, it wouldn't make sense for Kal Kat to literally be in the story. So, yeah, she can't be it. But RC sounds enough like Artemis Cavalier. Anyway, so, Artemis Prime. Yeah, and there's another RC that I got at the store thing that more of a Transformers Bumblebee RC, and there's a drag strip from Legends. And they look like the Artemis character, a little bit like the Artemis character from Beast Wars Neo and her assistant. Because there was actually a Transformers character from the very obscure Japanese side of the Transformers. And we can use that, but can't actually call them that. So in this version, she'll just be called, she'll be another version of RC. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. And yeah, because this character's appearance throws it off. There's like a flashback to the beginning of yet another flashback origin thing. I had to redo that so that it's not a flashback origin thing because that's kind of, well, we don't need to say that. Sort of like with the other one. But if it's something in the current period that's going on, that makes sense. Also, the title will likely be changed. The script is called Till All Are One, but how many fanfics are called Till All Are One? So some things have changed, and also we're kind of following the Rob Jung thing stories and the Rob Powers stories and that we did earlier, and that the making her. We made Rob Power. We changed the characters in the Rob Power story. The commander was Lexius in the Rob Power story. We changed it to Draconus Prime. And this one's a similar idea, but it's a lady one. That's a lady, sort of a proto-Prime character. But yeah, it's sort of, and then there's later on, there's another one. But in the case of the one that's later on, there's going to be another one later on. In the case of that one, it's not Chromia. It's not that they're saying Chassis becomes Chromia again and then becomes Chromia's Prime. That would be stupid. No, there's a character named Chromia 311 that's another pseudonym that's done a couple of the other stories we've chosen. So, so she's there. but not famous. We can't find out who Chromia actually is, so we can use that character because we don't know who that is. Also, she calls him something else anyway. In that one. Yeah, and we've broken the rule of including the hero character. Even with the pilot, we've had Chassis, who's clearly the personification of Bobby Carruthers' persona in the story, and her friend in the story, actually, who in real life actually is different. Apparently, yeah, I can look it up. Actually, the most recent episode of the Orville was very similar to that, and very similar to the All Transformers Much, which is weird because I believe that episode was actually filmed 3 years ago. So, yeah, so they had a character who dies and is resurrected in the Orville episode. It's like in a very similar way to what happened to some of the characters in multiple characters in the first and second season of Mush, including some of the ones that die. Yeah, so, but that's a comment. He was probably thinking of Transformers to begin with. It is Seth MacFarlane. He's familiar with it. He's probably just like, oh, that would be interesting if we did that. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. But it's remarkably similar to the actual plot of Transitions in that Orville episode. And I thought it was interesting that they went there. But in that version, they resurrect her like they do in this character who dies. Like they do in this sequel in the story. But in the episode, in 40 minutes, they just bring it back. So it's like, well, they kind of commuted all the first half of this story to do the other one. Whereas in the Transformer one, they stretched it out over 80 minutes for the first episode of Transformers Mush. And then in the sequel, another 80 minutes roughly. Yeah, so in this follow-up, and then sequels and follow-ups, and then this pilot where they did kind of the same thing, so I brought it back. Anyway, yeah, so this is a little behind the scenes. I don't think there's any filming tonight, but this is the beginning of new property. It's very hot. It's the middle of June. It's early June. It's very hot on the set. Yeah. Galvatron. Oh, is this the one where they steal the Unicron chip or whatever the fuck it is? I think it is. The ejected planet. Oh yeah, and there was an update on the basics thing, the basics on the giant Starscream Mega City thing from early Allspark, basically, from their guide from way back in the day. Early Allspark. So it's actually canon with the 80s Transformers comic, where it's actually from, but they called it the database or something. Yeah, I have that comic somewhere. But yeah, Giant Starscream was also in several other things, but not in here, not in the script. Yeah, instead we have a Mary Sue who runs around doing things. To tone that Mary Sue down and make it mainly about the other characters reacting to the Mary Sue, because kind of too much Mary Sue. Oh, there's another character. Rita, Chris, and Minerva. Also from the Japanese comic. So she's doing the Japanese continuity here a little bit. Coming up with a bunch of extra characters that it's just easier to say that they're actually. So look through it. It's easier to just do them as Transformers you know, because otherwise it's introducing a bunch of new characters is just for a season or a season and a half. Why? There's in a similar way there's connections between these characters that shouldn't really be there, but it was fun in the other one. Yeah, and I suspect that this script being 100 pages or so, I suspect that most of this is not actually filmable and it won't be that long. We'll see. Yeah. I'll just start shooting scenes tomorrow and see what happens. Well, yeah, this one was problematic because of they were doing the characters. This is Artemis. It was based on 70. And you didn't really have okay to do that. So yeah, we're gonna do it, just not with them as them in it. See, not their names. Yeah. So. You know what's fun is mostly robots. I thought the Trans Tech movies are all, Trans Tech stories are all about the robots having human emotions, so going through the motions with the emotions. And, yeah, that's always fun. Anyway, so yeah, that's a little behind the scenes. Note 22nd January, no June. Note 22nd June 2022. That in the script here that we've jumped to 17 about 5 pages later, only because those 5 pages are a flashback to before the war on Iacon, and we don't care about that. I don't want to do a flashback that's stupid, so we're gonna go right to this. The robots doing their thing, meeting up with Soundwave and Thundercracker, who were hinted at earlier, and were given many of the dialogue went to the girl, but to the road rage. But now we're going to meet them. Now we have to meet them at this point. Now they show up, and now we're going to meet Blitzwing. So yeah, yeah. So basically, they took some sort of a ship, pod or something, with the device on board, and that's what's going on. Is they went to find Soundwave and Blitzwing. This is page 17. Was page 10 before. Jumped about 6 or 7 pages because flashback to Iacon and the creation of Megatron we don't need. So yeah, so this is already a long story anyway. It's already going to be well over 90 pages. So that's well over 100 minutes. I think cutting out of one flashback is not really going to do anything. So let's do this. Ew. Yeah, it's too freaking hot to film anything more tonight, but it's ridiculous. So it's like 90 up here. So yeah, that was the scene with the scene up to page 20, and Swindle appeared, but we cut that out. Doesn't make sense. So now it's just, oh, Blitzwing is hiding something. They'll probably find out what it is, but the next scene is Autobots doing something, so it doesn't have anything to do with them. So we'll do that next. So yeah, cut for the evening. Okay, slight making of and revision 23 and 24. It's in the script that Wheelie and the Junkion show up, and 2 of her other characters that don't really do anything in the rest of the story. They're just there to crack jokes and do one-liners, some of which are Star Trek. And even though we're totally Star Trek people and Transformer people, we don't need to have that in there. It would be cut out in the cutting room floor anyway. We wouldn't include that. So let's just not film it. So we're going to go on to them in the war room. And the only line from any of that is Dinobots to the war room. I caught a rerun. That's why I'm here. So yeah. So that's what. Yeah, it's really hot again. So we're crank out about maybe an hour of footage, and then it's just too hot. It's literally sweating like profusely hot. Yeah, so we have it's ridiculous. It's got to be 90 degrees up here. So yeah, it's heat of summer that's kind of messing with it. But here we have for guys, and yeah, there was supposed to be let's turn it to me. Yeah. Yeah. Whew. It is warm up here, very, very warm. So yes, it'll go sardonic. I'll keep this brief anyway, because there's really not much to add to the overall. Anyway, so here we have. Originally this story was slated to be directed by either MC Kim or Jane Piedmont, and we couldn't get them to direct it. So you're stuck with me. Yeah. So, but it's hot up here. So we have we're about 30 pages into a 100-page script. It's probably going to be 90 minutes altogether. 30 pages in is about a third of the way through. It is day 5, I think. But it's been a slow-moving day 5. So there's like a day 5, but it's like a scene. There's like scenes on the tape. There's like 17 scenes. Just way, way slow. Really, really slow. Yeah, and it's the heat and other things. So, so we have, yeah, nothing extra. I'm not going to add any fluff in here about other movies or anything like that, or other stuff. There's just no point in it. It's a Transformers story. I did want to mention that I did cut some stuff out, some characters out of the story that fit. I thought that having Wreck-Gar and Spike and Carly and Daniel show up and having it Artemis originally and changing it to Prime made more sense. Because, yeah, this is clearly the future, not 2006 or something. It's clearly 2023 in this version. It's 2022 in this version. It's much, much later than all of that. They're on this planet. I looked up Sirius as a planet from Transformers, and there's almost nothing mentioned on TF 2005 about it. It is mentioned. There's a destroyed base. Apparently that's where they are. That's it. So there's a destroyed base. Yeah, so they're on this planet. We're not sure why they're on this planet. It's not connected to the other trade routes or anything. It seems to be relatively close to Junkion, and that's why there's a Junkion in it. But yeah, but only in this story. He hasn't shown up in the episode. I have a Wreck-Gar, but a couple of Wreck-Gars, but I don't think we need him just to spout lines from TV shows, so I left him out. If he shows up later, like, to help them out, he's not just going to spout lines from TV shows like the movie. And then, you know, he's not just going to do that. It's odd. I want to give them character arcs, you know, so they're doing something. Nobody's really out of character, although it's interesting that Trax sounds like Blaster. Well, that's because I decided to make him sound like that. Sound like a Shubalaffa type of Blaster. I thought that would be different and a little more Trax-like, having him just sound like he's from, well, maybe he's been smoking or something. No, vaping in space vape. But yes, Snakeweed from Star Trek Picard season 1. So yeah, yeah, nobody's been vaping. I'm just saying, like, Trax's voice sounds like that. So it's odd that we have sort of, yeah, a few minor changes. I think the Chromia / Moonracer is actually a Chromia / Moonracer, and not from the previous episode. They said even though the whole Transformers mush seasons 1 and 2, except for the pilot, were they were serialized but episodic. So they're episodes, individual episodes you can watch to the end, and they have endings. Corrosion of War Without End was 1 through 7. That was one you had to watch the 7, but then the rest you could just watch them out of order if you wanted to. But it helps to watch them in order. With this season, we had you know, the late spring movie pilot be the Transformers meets Starship Locations meets Transformers, and kind of pre-introducing us to some of these guys, which was interesting. But that's, I guess it counts as a pilot, but it isn't really, because we did last month. We had a pilot showing us well, it's a slightly different cast, some of the same people, but slightly different. They're doing something else, and we have Chassis reintroduced and all that. But then it's not connected to this story directly. But if you want to take it that way and say, like, oh, that's Chassis over there, you can, but I think it's going to be listed as Chromia in the credits. Artemis is, of course, based on the only famous one in the cast this time around. Artemis, or you know, the Cavalier. The currently Cavalier, one of the inspirations for the contest that created the later day Transformer not Moonracer, Night Racer, Not Artemis, but Artemis is there too. But rather, Windblade. Not Night Racer, Windblade. She wasn't the person that created Windblade, but she's one of the people that was a finalist. Artemis doesn't really look like Windblade. Artemis looks more like the Prime figures. Laser Prime figure. So I was like, okay, it's Laser Prime. Something like that. Small Draconis Prime. I joked that it could be Scout. He's just using a different form to look like Artemis, which would be kind of cool. Then he'd be like a Transformer. But no, it's not. That's not canon. That's not what I'm doing. Yeah, so she's more of a mercenary. She has a different backstory. She's more like sort of a Rakshi kind of character. That's fine. Raksha was also a fan person that was notorious on the fan boards for being kind of insane. But yes, I have never met her, so I wouldn't know. Well, the writings generally, yeah, just a little shout there, but that's cool. Anyway, so a lot of them were. Yeah, then this season, yeah, we had a number of other stories from other people we had to reject. But this wasn't one of them, because they were a little. But yeah, this one was fine. There's a number of stories coming up from someone named Chromia 311. That's we don't know who that is. Their real name. They didn't put their real name on lexicons, but their stories were good enough to be included in this season. So, yeah, and the way I'm going through this thing here is any extraneous scene where they try their hand at humor or we're like, oh, the humans are talking, or Daniel's in there or something. I didn't want the humans to be in this story, so they don't add anything. So this is already different from the original script. They're on a different planet. They're not on Earth in this version. Portland is not just Portland on Earth, but apparently what the base is called. But yeah, colony, that thing, or something. Probably because the author is based in Portland. He wanted to put himself in the story. That'd be my guess. But that was 20 years ago. The story is 20 years old or so. So, yeah. So this is my making of thing. And, so far, yeah, so, that's it for the evening. Well, early evening. And it is really hot in here. It's got to be 90 something in here. That's all. This happened the last 2 times we did something like this. Corrosion of war without end. We're sweating all over the figures down in the room. That's kind of gross. Also, we often turned on the fans, and you could hear them in the background. Then we'd have to like muffle out the fans, so it sounded like the engines on the spaceship. Didn't really work. It kind of threw the noise everywhere. The voices. So, yeah, don't do that if you do a fan film. I've seen some interesting fan films though, but nothing that. Yeah. So yeah, the Beast Wars. The second season, much you kind of had to watch all the way through, from beginning to end to get it, because it was more serialized. But yeah, that was fun. And also, yeah, and we also had to not do what they were doing on the Rise of the Beasts movie. So we had to not do what they're doing, not do what the Netflix people did on their series, their thing. Not quite do that. Do something else. I'm not sure if the Beasties show up in this or not. I don't think so. Not in this one. I show up later. Yeah. Yes. There's another series called Earth Spark, but I know nothing about it. It looks like a spin-off of the Kitty one. Yeah. Clang! I am Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots. My wang is large, and I use it to set. Okay, a little making of scene change here. Yeah, okay, we're not in the dream sequence anymore. So if we have Starscream show up again, audience is going to think we're in the dream sequence still, and she's still messing with him. He could show up later, but I think that would screw this up if he's in there. It would just mess with it. Also, revealing what the Decepticons are going through this soon. How did he find this out? So I don't think I want to do that either. Yeah, just because the chip you stole from me. Yeah, how would they know that? Did they broadcast to the Autobots that, oh, by the way, the chip, the Energon chip you stole was evil. It's fucked up Soundwave. And then there's a joke about Starscream still being with her and whatever. I don't think we need that. I think it's better if it's not in there. And definitely this scene later on 73, where they make a joke about the Yankees playing, doesn't make any sense either. I realize it's in the script from earlier, but we cut it out of the movie because it doesn't make sense. It's inconsistent with this version of the timeline anyway. So yeah, and he leaves here again on 73, but he already did in the other scene. He already kind of said, oh, okay, I'm part of you, and, you know, kind of see you. He already did that, so it's kind of like he's doing it again, just to tell the audience, tell the reader, I'm doing it again. By the way, I'm going now. Bye. I'm going now. It's like, no, he already did. Yeah. Okay, another brief. 77 is where all the baseball play is meant over. And it's where they sort of connect the scene with the Junkion in Artemis, and it's supposed to be a different town. They go to a different place. They go to Autobot City in the script. Here, they're still on Series 2, the whole movie. So they haven't moved this. They haven't flipped the script. They're just the whole movie. So Blaster says some stuff. This is where I want to announce that Blaster has learned of the Decepticon problem. The Decepticons are having an issue. Yeah. But that's going to be relevant at the end of this, not at the beginning. Yeah, because otherwise, why would the Decepticons even mention it to the Autobots? It's just like, yeah, so they wouldn't. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, this scene. Making of again. A little bit of making of. Yeah, a lot of first aid in the Junkion, saying a lot of medical stuff. We didn't need. Why does this turn into an episode of House MD? A little bit of ER thrown in. We don't need any of this like this. Just fix her and get her back up on her feet. It's punchier. That's what they do. Fine. We don't need all that other stuff. She had the dream while she's being repaired. We don't need that other stuff. So, I do mention Kemosabe. So this person is a Star Trek Chimera fan. Before Chimera did the joke. Well, that joke is before the script was written. That joke goes back to the old Chimera in 2002. So. No, it's not. It's a coincidence. Anyway, so we have more House MD shit going on here. Yeah, they're doing a whole operation here for like 3 pages. We're operating in the microsurgery thing and doing it. Why are we doing a medical show at this point? And then Rekgar goes crazy and starts thinking that he's in an episode of ER. What the fuck? Okay, no, we're not doing that. That's dumb. And then it turns into, yeah, an episode of House. I think House was a little after ER, wasn't it? Well, House was ripping off ER. So, yeah, it's ER. It's 5 cc's of stat. And then they operate her on her arm. And then something about the 5th inning of the baseball game. Okay, all the way to 85. Yeah, so there's whole sections of this are like, what? Yeah, I don't. I think this author should have stopped and just kept going. So let's see what's next here. I think I'm going to go to the part where the Megs is alerted. The Transformers are alerted to Megs' problem. Making of note. They're trying to choose a color for her and a car mode for her in the original story. They've completely, in the script, completely forgotten about the Decepticon problem going on. The Decepticon thing. The writer just forgot. So this scene, the way I've restructured it, now kind of alludes to, okay, there's this sort of, you got Artemis, and you got the other double spy lady over there. So clearly something's up that's brought them together in the room, and they're just, it's small talk, but it's important to the story. The stuff about Pontiac car colors and different things is not. Bumblebee being cute, it's not in the story anymore. Yeah, and literally we have 3 pages. So let's kind of get as to why they're here. So Wheeljack would be front and center in the scene, because let's get to why they're here. Let's do that. So yeah, it's Kal Kat, the Kal Kat's turn. You are watching, well, sort of watching the Transformers, Lexicons. This was the completion of picture photography of episode 2 of Lexicons. This was originally called Till All Are One, and it was by Artemis Prime. And yeah, we couldn't use a lot of the last 10 minutes because she forgot what she was doing and didn't film it. She just forgot. I guess she figured, well, I'll do a sequel and then they'll revise Soundwave in the sequel. Didn't film it. And although the other robot does figure out how to fix things, so I decided, well, yeah, there was this robot she introduced, kind of like the Splice guy from the Transformers meets Star Trek pilot, and then we did another episode as the second pilot. That's the official first episode. This one alludes to a character from that Star Trek Transformers Shadow Dancer, but does it in a way that you don't really need to know what happened. I mean, you can go back a couple of months ago and watch it. But yeah, there's another version of Shadow Dancer here, the human character who appears. It's a Scotty figure, and he's this universe's version, as opposed to the Star Trek universes, and he helps Soundwave to be repaired, which is kind of a nice nod to the previous stories. Galvatron respects him because he almost killed him. He almost killed Galvatron with his powers because he has Cillian powers. But yeah, so it's just kind of fun. A neat idea. Yeah. So, not saying there'll be a confluence of Star Trek figures in this. Not at all. There probably won't be very many humans in it. This strip did originally have Spike and Daniel and Carly in places in some scenes, but that didn't really work in this story. That's mainly the Transformers. As we did with the Mush, we're kind of doing with this one, kind of saying like, well, we need to just concentrate on the robots, give them personalities, have them do stuff. The whole Artemis and her over-the-shoulder Starscream pal, other universe guy is kind of funny. It's in the script. It's Starscream. It's in the script. The virus thing for Transformers kind of doesn't make sense. That the Decepticons wouldn't have a security firewall, and they did. But in this version, we're just chalking that up to Galvatron's a megalomaniac, and he figured, I don't need one. Which is kind of a cop-out, but okay. The Autobots have security, of course. We didn't need Cup in the final closing moments for the scene to work, because it was closer to the script. The 3 female robots that are outcast talk. In this version, in the script, Minerva was going to show up, and others, and Cavalier shows up. In this version, it's Chas. It's Chassis. She shows up. The designates are mentioned. The names like Artemis, ATRMS, and that kind of thing. Chas, CHSS, and Trax is probably TRX or something. Something like that. Yeah, doesn't explain how the other names would work, but yeah. But yeah, so there had to be a solution to the Soundwave scene. This was going to be directed originally by Marla Faqu, a character, and then MC Kim, both of which left to other things. They're not in the story. They might return, I don't know. Probably later on. Well, they're just different facets of Kal Kat anyway. But yeah, there was just too many ideas floating around in there that didn't make sense. Kind of wacky. So I figured, let's just do it a Kal Kat one again. So we have, so yeah, Artemis Prime or Cavalier is one of the known Transformer TF 2005 people from back in the day. We don't know her personally, or possibly him, who's now her personally, them personally, because apparently they're transgender or something, and they're famous. Well, maybe they're not. But this story seems like it's written with either by a guy with a lot of sisters or a guy that understands women very well, does their characters. But it's clearly the dialogue is clearly not the ham-fisted kind of dialogue of a man. It's clearly a thought sort of a more provoking sort of thought-based character drama about Artemis, who is basically a Mary Sue for the author, clearly. But this version we made it different. We got the Laser Optimus Prime, the Earthrise one, Legacy one. So if you want that toy, Artemis, it's just a Legacy Optimus Prime. Legacy Laser Optimus Prime. You can get it on Amazon, so if you want that one. Also, the chassis is just it's either Moonracer or Chromia. I think it says it's Moonracer, but it's supposed to be Chromia, which is weird. It's the car one from Combiner Wars, I believe. From Aileron, the robot, and there's an Aileron who later wrote an episode. It's not related though. There was an Autobot called Aileron as well. A lot of these are crossover stuff. This person's character is one of the runners-up behind Windblade. Windblade is an actual fan character who went out and did. It's not her though. I looked into it. It's not. She didn't think of Windblade. She was a runner-up. In kind of the same way Raksha was before, and also TF 2005 Moonracer, but that ended up being a character too, but also in a similar way to Kal Kat in that Transmetal Dinobot contest thing, yeah, from back in the day, which was not a contest directly. It was sort of just them screwing around on the internet, and they were like, yeah, send in the stuff, and they did, and yeah, they used it. So, but yeah, or at least something very similar. Can't say it's exactly. Yeah. So, and the Mush is popular. So, yeah, people have watched their earlier stuff there. Not as popular as some of my other stuff, but some of my reviews are more popular. But it's interesting that with Lexicons, this new one, there was a crossover with Transformers meets Starship Locations or Star Trek. It's kind of fun. That was not meant as a pilot, though. It was just meant to be fun. It does introduce some of the characters that are now in this, and you see them here, and you go like that. And you figure if you're fans of the Chimera channel, the Star Trek, Starship Locations universe, anyway, you're going to go over and check out the Transformers, and vice versa. If you're fans of the Trans-Tech, Space Bridge, the Robotech ones, the Shadow Returns, the Shadow Children. You will also go to the Mush, watch that, and go over to the Chimera channel and watch the Star Trek stuff too. Watch the Fallen Ones and all that, Corrosion of War and all that. Without End, which was based on Rob Powers stuff. Yeah, so and he did one other later story in season 2. So
and Rob Jung as well. Doug Muth did a bunch of them. In fact, one of two of the Star Trek one. Star Trek Meets the Transformers is a Muth and Lizard story, which has actually been done twice because we used one half of it in the Star Trek thing, another half of it in the Transformers episode, dealing with Maximo and the Leech Maximo. It is tied into the British comics loosely, tied into the American comics loosely, but the whole series has been. And the way that we, Mark's Cards and I conceived of the Trans Tech in the first place was, we wanted to do a fourth season of Transformers that never happened. Aware of the Japanese cartoon, but back then we did not have access to it. Now that we've seen the Japanese cartoons, ours have some elements of that too, but not, They didn't make very many toys, so we don't have those. But we do have nods to them here and there. And then Bludgeon was just introduced in our premiere a month ago. And that's a little over a month ago. And this episode took... we don't know if he's coming back, though. I don't think so. So there's sort of these one-shot story ideas with a central villain or anti-hero doing things. I think the first one, he's a straight-up villain. This one, she's an anti-hero. She's a Mary Sue. Artemis and Cavalier. Cavalier's character went on to become more of a foil for Windblade and some of the newer IDW stuff. So there's a Cavalier running around if you want to go check that out. But it has nothing to do with us. We know the original Artemis Prime toy looks like Night Racer, but she's a car. It looks like Night Racer. But I thought it would be more fun if she was a Prime truck thing. Yeah, that's cooler. She has a Prime voice from the other story. You could tie that in. You could say, okay, was she in the Matrix that Springer found or something? Or no, she wasn't, but it called to her, and she showed up. So yeah, there's a connection there. It just happened off screen. They called her to the planet, to the Zon Galvatron ship. They stole an ear from Unicron's, probably one of the horns, and took it to Sirius to steal the chip, which they had at Portland, which would have been on Earth. But in this version, we kind of said, well, he just came from Earth with it. So he's probably involved with all of it in the background. Shadow Dancer in the Portland. Or, came with the ship. It doesn't matter. It's science fiction. It's fantasy. It doesn't matter that he can fix a Cybertronic robot and just repair him and eject the virus from him. It's fine too. After a month and a half, we finished it. Started around the middle of last month on it. We started right after, pretty much within days after the pilot, but for some reason this one took until now. It'll probably be out by July 2nd or 3rd, probably. We'll see. So this is an episode. There are some changes from the script, because the script tended to go off on tangents where they made references to inside baseball, literally. Did Yankees jokes. I don't know why they did that. There were other characters that she threw in that were hers, that in the way that very similar to the stuff for Rob Powers in this. Not a bad story. It just needed to. If you're going to film it as a movie, you kind of have to change some things around and have the central characters doing stuff. I didn't want to have a cast of 80 people in it. It was hard to keep track of all of them. So it took some logistical finagling to make it work, and I think it does work yet again. And watch all of them in order, but also watch them out of order if you want. They're all fan films, Go Motion quality fan films, and you can watch them all. And so I mean, they're not great. They're not going to look like Hollywood, of course. They're fan films. So don't expect them to. Yes, and they will have strong feminine characters, strong masculine characters. And there'll be the occasional trans, gay, bi, or like gender fluid character. They'll just show up. Artie could represent something like that. Not saying the author, but the character represents that. Very much so. She's, literally, they conflicted in their mind. So that's interesting. You don't really get that much. I tend to not do what Michael Bay stuff did, of course. Do so other stuff. That's interesting. It is similar to Emgo the Freaking Geek. Emgo, they pointed. Some people pointed out, but you're just ripping off those Emgo sketches at the end. No, we're paying homage. We're not ripping them off. His are actually better than mine. But he only spends a few minutes setting up a scene and does a sketch. His longest was the Dino Riker Legend Dinobot Dino Kaiser thing, which you should totally see because that's awesome. It's an hour long, basically an early version of all Transformers Mush. He was doing a version of the King Dinobot King Grimlock story. I also did that later on, and we tried not to rip that off by replacing Grimlock with a dude from the Bay universe, so that we wouldn't get in trouble with it, cross over into the other one at all. We replaced him with a tank guy, the Brawl / Devastator guy. We gave him a name. We gave him the name Beast Mix. Beast Mix, yes. Which I don't think was copyrighted. Nope. Anyway, so yeah, there we go. Transformers Mush and Lexicons, named after the Lexicon website where these episodes were found. Go to Transformers Lexicons, which ended in 2016, and go look and see the stories as they originally printed. This one was called Till All Are One. We changed it to the Artemis incident, not for copyright reasons, but because the title didn't say Till All Are One. The title said the Artemis incident. So let's change the name of the title. The Artemis incident. That says more than... Till All Are One is too vague. Oh, the thing that they said at the end of Transformers movie. Ooh. And then she forgot to show that part. She literally didn't film the part where the Decepticons go to the Autobots for help. It's kind of implied, but I went there in this version. I fleshed it out. I said, that's your ending. They go to the Autobots for help, and the Autobots, being compassionate and honorable and everything, they're like, okay, we'll help you out. We'll fix Soundwave for you. There, that's your ending. It doesn't need to be anything mystical or anything. They're like, we'll fix it. Blaster's not even there when it happens. And it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Cup didn't have to be there. Not everybody has to be in a shot together to fill a scene. You don't need a scene where they're getting tattoos or a scene where they're getting their paint jobs restored because you forgot. As your epilogue, as it says in the script. You don't need to do that. You can just go straight with, oh, let's solve the story. Clearly the ending almost seems like it's tacked on, like someone else came and wrote the ending because she forgot, which is fine. That happens. Some of my early stuff, I completely did that. It's not that I didn't do that. It's like, 20-some years of experience with these things, yeah. So you learn from your mistakes. Anyway, so this is Kal Kat, the Kal Kat's signing off. Clang. I am Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots. My wang is large, and I use it to